Good morning and welcome to the Hobby Breakfast Show. We're back. We did a tournament, we survived, and I think we all had a good time. I'm joined today by Sebastian.
Hello.
Chef.
Hello.
And Mayor.
Hello, everyone.
And we'll keep quite general reactions, but any initial reactions to the tournament before we get started?
It was fun.
It was fun. There weren't too many meta lists, which was nice.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it was quite a nice.
Mayor owes me several drinks, I think.
I do. I owe you lunch and some drinks.
To be honest, I think you should just straight up give him some money for what happened during your game.
Here's a 20. Get yourself something nice.
Get out the middleman. Format for today's video, we're just going to go through each of our perspectives on the tournament individually. We'll go day by day. We'll talk about the matchups we had, how they went, and we'll finish by comparing how we did to our predictions, which I think will be quite an interesting process to go through, but yeah, we'll see how we go. We're going to start with Chef. So, how did this one start off, Chef? How was day one?
Day one was a lot better than day two.
Spoilers, come on.
Day one was pretty strong. I ended up with winning 3 games. I think I got 34 out of a possible 36 VPs and only conceded 3. So, pretty strong start. I don't think any of I can't remember what the scenarios were. The first one was
War.
Fog of War.
Fog of War, yeah, which I think for my list is always quite nice because having Legolas means you kind of you should be able to guarantee killing your target, and if you choose Legolas as your hero to keep alive, which I'd imagine most people would, you should be guaranteeing a decent amount of points there. The guy I played, I think he was relatively inexperienced, really nice guy. He had an Assault on Helm's Deep list. No, sorry, just a general Isengard list, but with a couple of ballistas and verts. Yeah, I think actually one of you guys played him as well later on. I think it might have been you, Sebastian.
Yeah, I did, but I think also OT played.
Yeah. This wasn't the first opponent who played us all multiple times. Like there were quite a few recurring opponents that came up throughout the weekend.
Yeah,
lucky bastards.
So that was I think an 11-0 win or something like that. Then moving on to the second
12-1 I had it, but yeah, it was pretty
12-1, okay.
Pretty
Did you take it off Longshanks?
Yeah.
Cool.
Anyway, we'll move on. Yeah, go to game 2.
Yeah, game 2.
It can't be 12-1. That doesn't make sense.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That's not possible.
No, it's not possible, is it? No.
That's to add 12, doesn't it?
Yeah. Maybe. Hang on, look.
Sorry.
I did copy and paste. Anyway, I'll cut this bit out, but I did copy and paste.
Sorry for interrupting you, Chef.
That's all right. I was actually trying to think what the second scenario was. I think it was Command Battle, wasn't it?
It's on the slides.
It says 12-1, so I did copy that one correctly.
Really?
I didn't think, obviously, but it does say 12-1.
I don't know how you managed that, Chef.
Yeah, I don't know how he's managed that because he didn't break me. He didn't. I don't know actually what he did there at all.
Cheat.
Anyway.
Maybe I've just put the score in incorrectly.
Anyway, let's not delve too deeply into that one.
Yeah. So second scenario, Command the Battlefield. I was facing a guy who had a pretty fun but less than optimized Moria list. So he had the dragon with a bunch of upgrades, and then I think Ashrak, 9 spiders, and a couple of Moria goblins. That was interesting. I think like 90% of the action took place in one small part of the board, which just allowed me to move other models around, and I think I got quite a commanding win there. I think that one might have been the 11-2 one, or 11-0. Yeah, I missed out on I completely forgot about the treasure in that game. I actually sent a guy off to go and get one of the treasure hoards. Then the dragon came in, I panicked and completely forgot that this one guy could have still got it quite comfortably without getting involved. So yeah, that was the second game, and then moving on to the third game was Contest of Champions, which I was quite worried about initially because Thaden's not a killy hero, and I was up against Durin's folk list. So I think the guy had Durin and the King's Champion. But yeah, the lack of might in that dwarf army really does hinder them, especially when you've got gambling, just regenerating the might. And I just threw Halif into Durin each turn, knowing I could heroic defense, and
Nice.
he didn't get a single kill with Durin. I got 3 with Théoden. I think though it took me like 4 turns of trapping Durin to actually kill him. He is such a tank. It's ridiculous.
Only 4.
So yeah, yeah, only 4. So yeah, that was the first day. Ended quite nicely.
Day 2.
Day 2. Yeah, I feel like this is going to come up in Mayor's highlights, isn't it? The first game was against Mayor, which was domination, I believe, against your Goblin Town Mayor.
If you tell it from your perspective, and then I'll tell it from my perspective, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, and we'll have someone impartial like OT come in and actually give us what actually happened.
Say what happened.
For me, it was just flashbacks of misery that game. I mean, we both agreed at the end of it that I probably could have placed the objective slightly better, but I think the dice rolling in that game was just horrific. The throwing weapons, which would hopefully have done a bit better and caused you to break a bit sooner, because I don't think you actually broke at all in the end. Just let me down. I don't think there was anything really that went well for me in that game.
No.
Yeah.
I'll obviously. I mean, it was summarized when you. I don't know if you want to tell the bit about
Théoden.
what happened with Théoden, yeah.
Yeah, so it was getting towards, I think probably at that stage we had maybe 2 turns left, realistically, with the time left on the board, and I had 2 might with Théoden. So I thought, right, well, I need to get some kills here and also try and push for the central objective. So Théoden was facing a solitary goblin, I think, actually, and Théoden did have a spear support. Heroic combated, rolled a 5 high with Théoden, naturally rolled a 6.
Yeah.
I decided, well, I'm just going to have to burn the might here. Like, I need to push through, get a few more kills in. Fainting with Théoden, of course, so roll to wound, double 1s. Okay, it's fine, I'm fainting. I just need a single 4 here. Re-roll, double 1s again. Face in the hands. Dice may have been strewn across the table.
Walk away because I was in disbelief. I thought you were just going to flip the table. And I wouldn't have blamed you. You also only needed 3s, I think. Because I was probably piercing you. Yeah, so I'd be guaranteed defense 2 and your strength 4, right? So, yeah.
Yep.
Even worse than you thought.
Literally a single 2 and I would have burnt the might. I rolled 4 1s. I think actually, OT, you were there to witness that, if I'm not mistaken.
Do you know what? I'm not sure I'll ever forget it. I think it was pretty sad, and like I've never really watched like someone's spirit break in that way, like directly in front of my eyes. It was because also like I'd come across earlier, and you'd had a few dud rolls on the throwing weapons, and I was like, okay, this is all right. But yeah, it was the 4 nat 1s in a row that was pretty spectacular.
I think it's quite impressive. It's quite skillful.
Yeah, I think
Yeah. I mean, I think we've all had those games, but I think that epitomised it in it. Like, just nothing went my way in that match. But that's not saying anything away from you, Mayor. I think you played it perfectly. I think really domination. Annoyingly, I think every other time I've played domination, I've come up against Goblin Town. It's just uncanny. It's really bad luck. I think. The last 5 times I've played domination, I think at least 3 of those have been against Goblin Town. So not great.
Wow.
So so that I think brought me back down to earth after the events of day 1, and then
day 1,
So then game 5 was Recon. I was playing against Luke Price and his Fedrid's guard list. I've actually played Luke, I think maybe about 5 times, a couple of times in tournaments and friendlies, and I've never beaten him. He's a very good player. that ended in a 5-all draw, and we both attained a treasure each, so no additional TPs to either of us. I think the VPs for me were killing Theodred and breaking him, and he got 2 models off the board, which is kind of impossible to avoid that happening because he had a smattering of cavalry, and he just put a couple on either flank, and I just don't have the numbers to mitigate against that.
Yeah.
And then going into the last game, which was Retrieval, I was playing against
Azog's Hunters.
Azog's Hunters, yeah. 42 models. Again, the thrown weapons and Legolas were really poor in that game. That ended up in a the score's not exciting, but it was actually a very good game. It was 1-1. Both of us had a treasure in that as well. So that was quite. Obviously, you'd always want to win your last game, but the game was enjoyable, and Joe's a really nice guy, so it's always nice to end a tournament playing a fun and friendly game with someone. But yeah, nothing really major happened in that. I think. Actually, Gamling got 1 turn, despite heroic defensing. Yasnek charged him, and I think he rolled 6 dice and he rolled 4 natural 6s, which is painful. That really hurt. I think that was probably the game. Well, not game winning, but that allowed him to draw. Had I survived that, Gamling was a decent way towards the objective, and with that heroic march I could have used each turn, I probably would have got it. So yeah, I think that kind of forced a draw from there.
Nice.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
So what was your final record?
3-2-1, which is not bad. Not bad. I think I've done 10 games with Defensive Helm Deep this year. I've lost 2, drawn 2, and won 6. So
Very
not
solid.
too bad. Yeah. But yeah, I also I lost a TP for submitting my list 1 day late, and funny enough, on the Sunday morning, I think we mentioned this to Liam, who hosted the event, and you guys, that I was docked an additional TP, or not docked it, but wasn't awarded it for getting the treasure, and as a result of that, it then bumped me up from 4th to 2nd, meaning I ended up facing Mare and Goblin Town in Domination. So if I hadn't said anything and I hadn't checked it, I would have ended up with probably a very different outcome.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
So where did you place in the end?
I think I finished 9th. Had I submitted my list on time, I would have finished 7th.
Oof.
Still pretty good.
Not bad.
That's
not
still
bad.
very good though. Top 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm more, if I lose less games than I win, then I'm happy with that. It's kind of my general rule of thumb.
Yeah. Cool. Right. Who should we move on to next? Sebastian, do you want to do yours, or shall I do mine?
I don't mind. Why don't you go ahead?
Okay, I'll do mine. So actually, to be honest, my weekend was quite similar to Chef's in some ways, except kind of the inverse. So my game 1 was Fog of War against Sebastian, which was a nice surprise. It was actually the first time I faced any of you guys apart from Chef 2 years ago in a tournament. So yeah, I was kind of looking forward to it. I think this was a really close game. I ended up with a 3-6 loss, but it was really tricky to say because we kind of how many models died in this game? Was it 4 or 5 or something? Virtually nothing died.
No, that's not true. By the end of the game, you'd almost broken me. I had
true.
maybe 3 or 4 models away from breaking.
Yeah, but that was because we blitzed through. How many turns did we play in last 10 minutes? It was 3 or 4 turns.
Don't tell Liam, but yes, I think we played about 4 turns in the last 15 minutes.
We were literally just right, we need to try and score some points here. But yeah, Eagles did their thing, kind of leapt about, got a bit wedged on the sort of furthest objective, which was quite annoying. The shielding Rangers were actually really good in this scenario, because if you took away my charge bonus on the Eagle, we were just having 2 dice each, and it just actually didn't end up being that impactful from the Eagles. But yeah, that was a reasonable game. it all started to go downhill in game 2. I will say, like, all opponents this weekend really nice, no issues with any of them. All the salt was entirely directed at myself, like nobody else. It was just me playing like a chump in some games. But yeah, so this was Command the Battlefield against Lake Town and Thranduil's. I really like this list. Like, I think as many elves as he had, smattering of bows.
It was 40 models, wasn't it? 'Cause I
also
played against this player.
Yeah. Thranduil with Kit and what's her name? Not Frida.
It was Raider. Yeah, the one that
I thought that was a Dunland hero.
It's Hilda Bianca, isn't it?
Hilda.
The Frida Toll Spear.
Yeah. Okay.
I remember it ended with an A.
Yeah, and they've got spear. But yeah, this one I set up really well. Everything was kind of in my favor. Like, I had him nicely hemmed in. Eagles where I wanted them, and I was like, right, we're gonna smash this. And then there was one turn where I was like, I could either go forward or go back, and I 100% in hindsight should have just retreated, taken like the kills that I'd got, and just bailed and gone for the objectives. But I tried to go in for Thranduil, rolled badly on the Eagle, got surrounded, and then basically it just fell apart from there. Also, this was the first game in which I misplayed Bilbo. He got surrounded and I didn't heroic defense, and I don't know why. Like, it wasn't like I forgot, because my opponent asked me, do you want to use heroic defense? And I was like, no, he'll be fine. And then I was like,
ballsy.
I was
Reverse
like,
psychology.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, no, he's not going to be fine. He's surrounded with like 5 elves with the spears. Like, he's going to lose. And then he died with 2 might left, and he just took 5 wounds straight up and died. And yeah, that was, I think that wasn't too bad in and of itself, because the game was already lost by that point, but it tilted me so hard. And then into game 3, I literally, I think this is the worst SPG I've played in a long time. Both of my Eagles were dead by turn 3. One of them got shot by a ballista, and then I charged Gwaihir in because I was annoyed. Then he put a Crabane on it and Lurtz on it. And then Gwaihir just died. And then I was like, well, the game's lost. And then I just started throwing. I actually nearly salvaged a draw because Thorin managed to get a couple of kills because he had Orcrist and I was against Uruk-hai. So I actually nearly scabbed the most bullshit draw in history. But yeah, it was too late. Like, the game was already done. And yeah, I was pretty sad by the end of the day, to be honest, because like, I thought I played okay in the first game. I think I played okay in the second game. And in the third game, like, my opponent did everything right, like, positioned well, but I just charged straight into the trap. And it was just like, yeah, well, I now deserve to lose, which was frustrating. However, day 2 is a different story. I meditated overnight. I came out super zen, and I was like, right, we're going to smash it today. I manifested it, and it actually happened. It did help playing Wargs in the first game. It's kind of like, if I can't win this game, like, it's such a favourable matchup for me against Wargs, because it turns out hurling a model with a cavalry base into other models with cavalry bases is really, really good. And the Eagles were basically just able to completely wreck the Wargs. And then once this Warg horde breaks, they just flee because they're all courage 2. So
that could have gone against you, actually, if
yeah,
if the Wargs had started running away on purpose and then the game ending.
Yeah,
well, that game did bring me some joy, actually, because you was right next to me and there, and in amongst the devastation on my table, seeing Wargs just disappear off the table and shenanigans was quite fun. I think didn't Thorin like have a massive cock up at some point?
Yeah, he got fully surrounded twice, but I just shielded with the Oaken Shield and just parked the bus, basically.
Very themey.
Which actually was quite good. But yeah, it was. I don't know. I think I was like slightly cocky in this one, just because I was like, I hope I should be able to beat the Wargs, but like, to be fair, up until the second last turn, I think we worked out in VPs I was losing like 10-0 or something, because she just had so many Wargs and all the objectives. But as soon as the courage test started going, she actually quartered herself with courage tests. And then at that point, it was like, yeah, the game's kind of done. And fortunately, the Eagles were able to kill enough, and I scraped out an arrow 4-2 win. I don't think I got the treasure in any of my games. I might have got it in one of them, but I can't remember which one it was. Wasn't my primary focus. I think my primary focus was just not tilting myself again. Game 5, Reconnoiter, not normally a good one, but I was against... I really like this list, actually. It was all Wood Elves, nobody with armour, so didn't give Celeborn armour either, just his sword. It was full Pyjama Party Elves. And yeah, this was all right. Eagles charged up, took control of the center of the board, and then just kind of chased everybody around. This was the only game in which Bilbo did something, which was quite nice. I managed to get Bilbo and Dwalin in on Celeborn a couple of turns in a row, and they were able to beat him to death. But yeah, it was a 3-0 win. Nobody got off the board. It was just he ran out of models basically, and then the game ended on a 1. So yeah, it was pretty good. Final game, Game 6. Game 6 is always a bit of a weird vibe at the end of like quite a long weekend, because everybody's still being really nice, but everyone's also just really tired. So like I think it can sometimes be a bit strange. But this was a really nice game. Up against another Phaedra's Guard list, different to the one you guys played, but yeah, it was pretty fun. Eagles did their thing, killed Elfhelm, combated, killed Phaedrad, all good stuff. I'm trying to think what happened. Not a lot really happened. I screwed up some courage tests. Yeah, not much happened in that one. It was kind of like, it all went by in a bit of a blur, to be honest, that final one. But yeah, so having been 0-3 at the end of day 1, I ended up 3-3 at the end of day 2, which I was pretty pleased with, actually. Like, I think if if you had shown me that result at the end of day 1, I'd have been pretty happy. So yeah.
Where did you finish?
I don't think any of us predicted you to get 3 wins, did we?
No, it was all 2 and 4. Hang on, let me double check the predictions. So, Sebastian predicted me 1 and 4, and everyone else predicted me 2 and 4. So, yeah, I managed to slightly outperform. Where did I end up finishing? I think I was marginally below average. Yeah, I was 19th. But then, like, I think because of the what's it called, the treasure fight, treasures, like, it really kind of compacted everything down quite a lot. Because, like, so for instance, the gap between me in 19th and the gap to Chef in 9th was only 2 tournament points. So like, if you were able to grab a couple of treasures, it could really like ping you up the rankings, which was really interesting. I think like made people definitely play differently, which was quite interesting. Cool. I reckon we go to Sebastian now, and then we'll come back to Mayor at the end for no particular reason. So
I didn't win, people. Calm down.
Sebastian, off you go.
I came last.
Yeah, the upset of the tournament. Yeah, so my day 1, taking the Mirkwood Rangers. I'm not taking them to tournament before. By the end of the day 1, I was a little bit deflated, but I had some very enjoyable games because, of course, as you know, in game 1 I played against OT, which was Fog of War.
Yeah.
Just thinking in terms of the models that we chose, it was quite amusing at the start of the game because we both wrote down the models that we wanted to keep alive, the ones that we wanted to kill, and the terrain piece we wanted to capture, and then we both put them face down under the same piece of terrain, and then we instantly almost forgot what we had written down. And of course we couldn't then pick them back up because we might accidentally look at the opponent's choices. So that was an interesting dynamic.
We were both kind of playing in the dark a bit, which was quite an interesting experience.
Yes, but I think as as Chef alluded to before, having Legolas in the scenario is quite advantageous, and I think with the amount of bow shots that I had, although I did feel a little bit unlucky with some of my in the ways with the amount of terrain on the board.
Well, especially when you heroic accuracy'd and then proceeded to fail the ball anyway, it was quite sad. Like
classic Sebastian dice rolling.
It was pretty catastrophic.
But I think having the amount of bows, getting rid of all of the ponies in the first couple of turns was quite helpful. But those eagles definitely did put in some work. Not being able to really work around them and losing that pivotal combat with the strike off almost losing Legolas in one go.
Yeah, that was pretty brutal. But then, like, you were just able to hide in the wood, and that's such a brutal like swing for me, because you want to be in the wood, and I can't really chase you into the wood, like, because I also don't want to be sending the dwarves in there, because then they're moving two and a half inches into the wood. So yeah, it was really interesting, and then basically ended up with like just a sprint to the line that we didn't quite have the time to finish.
Yeah, I miscalculated getting the one almost guaranteed part of the objectives, which was the terrain piece. Because I left it a little bit too late. But a result of 6-3 and a very enjoyable start to the tournament, very relaxing, was quite nice, because obviously playing someone that you already know is going to be slightly less stressful than playing against someone who you don't know. But yeah, very very enjoyable game. Quite a very close game. Could have gone up very differently if certain other things had happened. But onto my game 2 was again Command the Battlefield. Now this was a very interesting one as well. It happened to be against Mare. So having just played OT, it's now Mare. So yes, this was a rather disappointing matchup for the scenario. And
you lost priority, which pretty much bummed you, didn't it?
I think that one roll...
Sorry, you won priority, that's what you should say.
I was going to say, I had to deploy first with my Rangers, and that was rather sad. To the point where the celebration after
I did a little fist bump.
Basically gave you the win.
I was like, yes! I mean, it was so important. We both knew it was important.
Yeah.
In a scenario which I am heavily unfavored in any way, I think that pretty much made it game. And
I was probably mature of me.
Mare was very surprised.
Ruthless?
I was gonna say surprised, because I think he forgot that all of my elves were defense 3, so he was saying, I do only need 4s to kill you. And
that's so brutal with goblin tag.
I didn't even have to piercing strike. It was mental.
Yeah, and it was kind of sad, because even the ones that I was winning in, where you'd forget that I had the knife fighter special rule and get all the additional attacks, even those fights I was still losing. But some of them where I'd win, I would need 4s to kill you, and I just wasn't rolling them.
It was I was part way through. I was trying to figure out OT as the kind of maths boffin. I was going to ask you halfway through our game. I was going to come over and ask you what's better, to have two attacks versus 2 attacks where the enemy has higher fights, or 2 attacks versus 1 attack where the enemy has high fight, or 4 attacks on 3 attacks where the 3 attacks has higher fight.
Oh, you should always aim for the minimal attacks from the elves, because
minimal attacks, okay.
Yeah.
Because they win draws, and draws become more and more likely the more dice you roll. For instance, like you might, because you're only looking at the highest results, so you're both more likely to roll a 6, although you're likely to roll a 6 on 1 dice based on this weekend at some points. But
yes, true.
Yeah.
All right, sorry, continue.
It got to the point where Legolas's warband was facing the Goblin King, Gollum, and Grinner, and all of their warband. Tariel's warband was thankfully left alone, because you ganged up on the other ones, and the captain's warband got killed by your captain's warband. But eventually, it was a bit of a brutal beating, because I think you'd only lost about 3 or 4 goblins by the time Legolas and his whole warband had been killed. Because of the Gollum Goblin King combo. Legolas died with all of his might, unfortunately.
Good lord.
Yeah, there was literally nothing you could do. I just jumped. I was like, I know you're going to roll a 6, but I'm just going to try and roll a 6. I think I might have even had to might it. I can't remember.
I think you did, yes. You did have to might it in the end. So at least there was that. But yes, it was the end result of that game was 0 victory points for me and 12 for Mare. Game 3 was Contest of Champions, and this was against the Thranduil Lake Town list that OT has played previously.
Yep.
This was a rather poor matchup for me as well. strictly because Thranduil
Thranduil.
was looking to kill his son, and that's going to go very badly for Legolas. So having to deploy the Rangers right in front of a line of 20 by 2 elves and Lake Town was a bit sad. Not being able to
ideal.
use any of my bows, not having a banner, him having fight 6 and I don't. Thranduil being fight 7 and Legolas being fight 6. Literally every single little stat that mattered was stacked against me. You know, even Lake Town defense 4, whereas I'm all defense 3. And so I knew that this was going to be a very tough game, and I didn't really play it very well either. If I'm completely honest, I knew I was going to go out with a loss, but I did try my best. Legolas got I think 3 kills. Thranduil ended up getting 7, so it wasn't a triple, but that game ended up being a 10-0 loss as well. So we ended the first day on 1 win and 2 losses. Going into day 2 though, was a lot better actually. I did fairly well on the game of domination. I had played, this was against Tom. I played Tom every single time we've gone to a Worcester event, which is bizarre. And it's always been canned. So I kind of knew exactly how to play against the list, but this time he had taken a lot more chariots. It was 2 Kundish King on chariot, 2 Chieftains on chariot, and 2 regular chariots, and then a smattering of horsemen. I think it had 18 models in total. So it wasn't actually too bad because I was already outnumbering him. But my worry was that the chariots can still go into the woodlands that was on the table. They could still fit, and of course they are doing 2 strength 4 hits on impact, which is terrible because obviously only being defense 3, it's pretty much a guaranteed kill if I am being hit by the chariot. So the strategy for that game was essentially sit in the woods where he's going to be going a quarter movement, even with heroic march. That's still very minimal movement, and just try and use things like the sentinel to try and maybe put stuff in the way and trap and kill the leader. I did use Legolas's 2+ automatic hit on the regular charioteers because needing a 5 or a 6 for any in the ways is quite hard to achieve.
Yeah.
And just getting Legolas to be like, right, I'm going to shoot that guy. He's in defense 4. I need a 2+ to hit him, and then I'm going to be probably spending some might if I roll a 4 to get that 5. But unfortunately, I just rolled 2s on the wounding every single time except for 1. So there was one incredible moment though by my opponent, I must say. Having his leader on 1 wound remaining in a big old combat against Tariel and about 6 or 7 elves. Before we got to the combat phase, he had 1 shot left, and he decided to try and shoot one of my elves, maybe untrapping his leader. And he rolls, he hits to hit me or him. It ended up hitting the king, and then he needs a 5 or 6 for it in the way, so should be all right. But no, he rolls another 6. So then he needs a 6 to wound, and of course he rolls the 6. So a big old help from Tom in killing his own leader. But that game was then pretty much finished because those elves are then free to go and capture the objectives. And that was quite a comfortable win in the end. I think there was only 2 or 3 chariots remaining, but because I kept winning the priority rolls, there just wasn't a chance for them to charge, and just shielding off a chariot is pretty effective with the higher fight as well. Going into my game 5, that was Reconnoiter. This was against the Isengard list that had Lurtz, Vrasku, Double Blister, some crossbows, 2 Crabane. That was my most worrying part of facing this list, was the Double Crabane, because they did have that, natural needing 6s to hit them against shooting. So I knew I'd have to get into combat with them at some point, but being 12 inch of movement and me not having any heroic march or anything like that was going to be a bit scary to deal with. And having to dodge all of the ballista shots was quite difficult. There was a lot of terrain on the table, but that meant that there was a big no man's land in the middle. So if I had tried to play the main objective, I was just going to get wiped off the table by crossbows and the ballistas. So I had to kind of hang back in my own half a little bit, meet him in the middle, try to get that break and get the leader kill. That's pretty much the only way I was going to score any points, and try and get the Cobain not off the table. And my Sentinel was the MVP of that match, pretty much, because he managed to El Madrigal the Cobain into my ranks 2 turns in a row, and managed to trap and kill with the captain. So that was a very effective way of dealing with them. So that was a very big sigh of relief of that I had that shenanigans in there. That game ended up being literally a 1-0 win. I think if we'd played maybe 2 or 3 more turns, my opponent would have got 1 or 2 models off the table, and could have turned that around. But I think he was also 1 model off of breaking, and Lurtz was on 1 wound. So I think Lurtz was going to probably die, and he was probably going to break. So I think it could have ended up being a draw. But because we were in the last sort of 5 minutes of the round, we called it there. So very close win. And going into the last game,
sorry, just quick on the ballistas. Yeah. They are so much less scary without the Legion. Like
infinitely, yeah.
It's like, obviously you should still be concerned about them, but it's also the fact they can't reroll scatter.
Yeah.
So like when I played this list, even though I was tilted like pretty hard, like all I was doing every time was just directing them onto somebody who had fate left, and like like even in my list where it should be more problematic, like it wasn't too bad. So, and because they do need that, because basically to guaranteed hit their target, they need to do a 4-up and then to hit in the first place. Then actually there's normally going to be some kind of in the way, in my experience. Like normally with a ballista you try and get some kind of in the way, so it's another 4-up, and then to actually hit they need a natural 6 unless they're willing to burn might. So they do become so much less scary without the Legion backing them up.
Yeah, I think there was one moment though, I think in the one from last turn of the game, where Legolas was fighting in combat against Vrasku, and I was going to be hurt combating off of him to get into Lurtz and finish Lurtz to get the leader kill. And he had just about line of sight. Even though I've got Elven Cloak, he had line of sight to Legolas. And he got that 4+. Then it hit me. And then he rolled that 6. And I was like, oh, okay. And the most annoying part, I suppose, about getting hit by the ballista is, I mean, as long as you pass your fate and not instantly die, it's actually being flung back. He got flung back about 5 inches. And then you're also prone for the next turn. So that I think that's one of the biggest threats, actually. And it is a little bit like yours. You know, if you do get hit, then your hero is also going to be on the floor. So that kind of takes you out for 2 turns. It gives them an extra chance, I suppose, of shooting them again.
And especially if you set up for a big like combat turn, like that can just be pretty. Because actually, like I think in my list especially, like maybe this is exaggerated, but like so much of it relies on setting up a couple of big turns with heroic combat and things like that. And there are a lot of lists that seem to have like quite a big hero who could set up these like big chains for the rest of their models.
Yeah. Those it's very good at sort of messing with your plans, and especially I think it kind of times itself depending on how little models you have. Obviously, the value goes up because it's disrupting more.
Right, game 6.
Yeah, game 6, retrieval. This was against Shane. Really lovely game. It was he brought with him Galadriel, almost a full warband of pajama wood elves with a smattering of spears and bows. He brought a Rohan captain with some regular Rohan warriors, you know, to get in that front line with axes. And I think the last hero was Dernhelm with a couple of cavalry. So I was a bit afraid of that cavalry, and obviously having Galadriel with the channel blinding light was going to be very problematic. And him starting on that front line and getting the captain, I was worried about that heroic march up into my kind of territory. But he wanted to kind of see. It was a very relaxed game, but Shane was thinking, you know, what's going to be the outcome? Is he going to have to force me to go to him, or is he going to have to come to me? I had a couple of tricks up my sleeve because I've actually played the reverse of this game. The same scenario, retrieval. I've used Lothlorien with Galadriel against this Legion at a similar points level. I ended up winning that with the Lothlorien, but my opponent was out shooting me despite having the Blinding Light. So I kind of knew in the back of my head that the Blinding Light, like the stats were still kind of stacked in my favor, especially with how he deployed. He actually put his bows all in one group with no in the way. So I was thinking, actually, if I can shoot all of his archers, then he's going to be forced to come to me anyway, and I can sort of fight on my terms. And I mean, for the first couple of turns, it was very even, and I think he was sort of starting to go, well, we're probably just going to have to go into combat. And there was one turn where I used the Sentinel to do a bit of a dirty trick and asked one of his Rohan riders to do a courage test. And then I ran him out of the 6-inch bubble so that I could shoot at that target with about 6 or 7 in the ways. And of course, then I'm hitting on my 3s. And that was very strong.
Oh, nice. Did he fail to stop that from happening in subsequent turns, or?
Yeah, because there's not really a way you can stop it because there's so many models around, unless he moves this entire army backwards and be out of range. But then he's not playing the objective, and he's going to outfight me. He still had 40 models, so he still had an extra 14 models than I did with the cavalry and with Dernhelm. So I think he was like, at that point, I think once he realized that, he did end up killing the Sentinel, but even after that, he was like, right, let's go for it. And it was a bit of a slog. We ended up going into time, so we didn't quite finish the game to its natural conclusion. But it ended up just being a 0-0 draw.
A classic.
A classic. We were both a couple of models off of breaking each other. So it wasn't too far off of either of us scoring some points. And he was definitely very close to moving my objective, and I was nowhere near his objective. Did manage to do took 2 fate off of Galadriel with Legolas shooting at her with his 2+. So I was trying to get that leader wound, but having that re-rollable fate, just couldn't get through it. But it was a very fun game. So nice. I ended up with 3 wins, 1 draw, and 2 losses, and that put me in 12th place, which I'm very happy about.
Yeah. Not bad for a first outing with the list, at a tournament. Not a bad start at all.
Yeah, no, I think it's really good. I'm really glad that the second day went fairly well, considering.
I think after playing you in Commander Battlefield and then doing Contest of Champions,
I'm not going to have any games to go through, am I?
Improved from there.
It was. I was well in the way of thinking. Right, here's my prediction. It's going to be correct. 2 wins, 4 losses. But no, I was happily surprised.
Nice. Right, and I guess we'll finally throw it over to Mayor for his recap of his games.
Okay, right. So I won't have to do 2 of the games, which is nice.
You could give your perspective. You could be like, this guy just kept whinging about.
Do we have to recap game 4 again? Have I not suffered enough?
Are we going to do a play-by-play? No. So game 1, Fog of War, Theodred's Guard against. It was against Luke. He played it incredibly well. He played just so well. He was winning up until the very, very end. I'm just getting Longshanks up as a side. So, I mean, he skirmished the shit out of that game. He threw every throw weapon that he could at every given opportunity. He basically didn't defend his terrain piece, and I just went up the board to that terrain piece, more or less ignored my own terrain piece, but in kind of going diagonally, I exposed a bunch of my army, and he was able to flank it, and I decided he did something incredibly clever at one point where I was calling a move with Goblin King, who had some goblins surrounding him for protection, because I know I can run through them. I lost the move off, and he moved away from 6 inches from the Goblin King, so I couldn't charge anyone to trample my own guys, and so the Goblin King was stuck there. And obviously he's called a move now, so he can't go anywhere. And I did not see that coming. I thought it was really, really clever. Unfortunately, what Luke didn't account for was me then throwing the Goblin with the Goblin King rolling a 6 and wounding the guy that he was protecting.
Yeah, why didn't he anticipate that? Like,
I don't know,
outplayed.
Outplayed. Yeah, no.
Large brain.
Luke said every time I've played him, I've managed to get a goblin thrown at him somewhere, and in this case, it was at Elfhelm, who failed his Throne Rider, got wounded, and failed his fate. So he took the wounds, and I mean, I wasn't even going for him. I was going for Grimbold, so I just got lucky. And then in the very last turn, I think Luke didn't realise that you just had to be within an inch of the Dragon's Ignis objective to try and take it.
Okay.
And so
you didn't have to touch it, did you?
Yeah, you don't have to touch it. So I snagged his. He failed to snag mine for two turns in a row, and thankfully I held out on the last turn. I had 3 goblins on the terrain piece he was going for. Just a total coincidence that I happened to be there. Like, it could have been a different terrain piece, but it wasn't. I got extremely lucky, basically. And like I said, Luke played incredibly well. Game 2 was against Sebastian. We sort of covered that for the most part, but I've played essentially what Sebastian's list was before on Heirlooms, which is also Maelstrom deployment. So I kind of already knew how to deal with it. I did get a bit zealous and started committing too many guys to his elves at one point, and he did start winning some of the fights. And obviously, he had so many attacks, he just basically killed everything in base contact. But in the last turn again, I mean, to be fair, in the last turn, I was holding both of the Dragon's Ignis objectives, and Sebastian stole one of them. So I did manage to get it back, but I did manage to get the 12-0, which was fortunate for me. Again, just an incredibly bad matchup. Like, I do feel more and more like the more I play SPG, the more I can sort of predict the outcome of the game. You can play as well as you like, but I think there are some matchups that are just incredibly terrible. I was curious though, you deployed each warband on a different edge. Was that just so that I couldn't surround your whole army at once, or?
So the idea of that was if it got down to ending the game quickly, I may have contesting models in more quarters.
In different quarters, yeah, that makes sense.
Because if I do deploy in one quarter, and you decide, right, well, I'm Goblin Town, I have the Scribe, I can just deploy right next to you with my entire army, and then get goblins to come on in all of the other quarters, then there's no way I was going to have any chance.
That makes sense. Yeah, so yeah, incredibly unfortunate there, and I obviously just had to 12-0 Sebastian, I'm so sorry. Game 3 was Contest of Champions. This is the one that I was predicting a loss on. I didn't know it would be Contest of Champions. I knew it would be one of the 3 killing scenarios. This is, the first or second best one for Goblin Town, and I was against Thrors. He had Thror, he had young Thorin, I believe, and a captain. He deployed a really nice battle line in the center of the boards. I ended up deploying my Goblin Mercenaries and my captain on the flanks to do a march around pieces of terrain to get to his flank and rear to sort of surround him, which was a slight risk because he had Thror at the back, and I thought, well, if Thror just goes off to the side and starts killing goblins, there's very little I can do about that. But fortunately for me, I managed to push through the middle with a Goblin King, and I actually managed to hurl, which put Thror on the floor, and in the following turn he wasn't able to move far enough away, so I was able to combat with the Goblin King and Golem off of just a dude and go on to Thror. So I had Thror surrounded with the Goblin King and Golem. The Goblin King, when he's rending against Thror, needs 2s. I rolled 6 dice.
So obnoxious.
Because he's trapped, obviously. I did roll 2 1s, so I did 4 wounds. And obviously he's got his Arkenstone, which basically, I believe if he rolls a 4 up, he can just keep rolling it, right?
Yep.
Unfortunately for him, he only had 1 might left, and he rolled a 2.
Oof.
So I believe he passes on a 3, but then it runs out. So you mighted it to pass it, but it didn't matter because I'd done 4 wounds, so the other 3 rolled over onto him. And unfortunately, that was through or dead before you had a chance to do anything. At this point, the Goblin King already had 4 kills, so I'd basically won the scenario, unfortunately. At that point, it kind of snowballed. Once you've got 4 or 5 goblins on 1 person each, and you've got no banner, it's looking pretty hopeless. So that was that game. So I was 3-0 going into the second day. So I was thinking to myself, all I have to do is win 1 game, and I'll have got my prediction. Anything above that will be a bonus.
Nice.
Then I played. Was this the game, Chef? Was it? Oh
Yeah.
no, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Where am I?
Like you don't know.
Yeah. Game 4. Game 4 with Chef.
Sorry, I've skipped to the wrong slide. So Chef and I had a game. You've heard a bit about that. I think Chef played it pretty well. He could have maybe been a bit scummier than he was, and I wouldn't have blamed him. There were some buildings that he could have tried to utilize. Perhaps I don't think it would have made a difference.
I don't think it would have made a difference because it's within 3 inches, right? So I think we discussed one of the things I could have done is put it at the top of the building where there was some stairs, but all you then would do is put your goblins on the other side of that building, where I have to, it takes me 2 or 3 turns to get around. So I didn't want to be in a position where you could use the buildings to your advantage. But yeah, I don't think there was any other way that game could have gone realistically.
No, it was pretty tough. I think goblins be goblin, and your rolls were fucking shit. So you would. It was not helping.
Was impressively bad dice rolling at points.
It was.
What we didn't touch on that game as well is Theoden's failed heroic combat also meant he got 1 turn by a golem and the Goblin King, because if he'd have got it, he would have been further. He would have been 6 inches further away. So that was just horrific for so many reasons.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. So, I managed to get. I think I didn't say, but in game 3 I got the treasure. And in our game, Chef, I got the treasure as well. So far, I'm on 3 treasures.
Yep.
That takes me on to Reconnoiter in game 5, which was against Aaron. He was really nice. He had Corsairs. He had Dalamir and Dagomir, or whatever his name is.
Eldamar.
Right? Dalgamar. All the Dal somethings. And a captain, and just a shit ton of crossbows and throwing weapons with dudes.
Yeah.
It was pretty intimidating. He had 2/3 the model account that I did, but everyone had throwing weapons. So going into it, I was pretty terrified. Reconnoiter, I've got a chance if my goblins can if my mercenaries can get on a terrain piece and get out, then that would be brilliant. Unfortunately, I lost the roll off for picking sides. One side, as you can see in the picture, had 2 terrain pieces. The other had 3, so obviously he picked the side with 2, so I couldn't deploy on 1 of 3, so I had to go on 1 of 2 instead. Mercenaries did really well, didn't come in for about 10 turns, I think. But neither did my entire army for the first turn, and the captain didn't come in until turn 4. So I was at a slight disadvantage in terms of board control. By the time my goblins got to within 2 or 3 turns of getting off his board edge, I'd broken, and I think he'd killed over 25 models by the time I got to combat, which is only about 10 off breaking me. So it was really difficult. He trapped all my mercenaries, more or less. He played it really well, and to be fair, I did start catching him up. He was getting a bit closer to breaking himself, but I did end up 25%ing myself, not on purpose, just through sheer death of goblins. But I did make it my mission to hold the 2 treasures at that point, because it was all I was going to get from the game. So I did get the treasure, but a loss. That took us into game 6, which was Retrieval. That was against Stuart. Stuart was really nice as well. He had Moria and the Spider Queen and the Watcher. So he had Durbers, a bunch of goblins. I think about 30 models, 31 models, something like that.
Pretty
so
crazy. It's
not
600. Like that model count with those monsters in there as well. Like that's pretty crazy. There were actually, I think that was a bit of a theme. There were a lot of lists that just had like way higher model count than I expected. Like that Lake Town list for the heroes they had and things like that. But maybe that's how it goes at 600.
Yeah. So a really interesting army, and at this point in the tournament, Aaron was on I think one more win than me. So if he lost his game and I won, then I'd win the tournament. If he lost his game, and I didn't realize this at the time, but if he loses his game and doesn't get the treasure, and I do get the treasure, I will actually be above him in the rankings. So obviously I didn't know whether if I as far as I was concerned, I had to win because Aaron might win his game, in which case I really have to win mine. So I thought, well, I might as well go for the win. You can see from my goblins on the right there, they're sort of swamping a treasure objective. On the left, I had much fewer goblins on that objective. Obviously, retrieval, I have to get over to his deployments. At this point, I'd moved quite far up, and I wasn't sure if he was just going to deploy the Watcher on the objective because it would push everyone away, and he can pick it up straight away. So I was keeping Gollum and the Goblin King kind of in the middle of the board, so that if the Watcher comes in at home, I can turn the whole army around. I can just go gank the Watcher, and then play from there. But he ended up deploying the Watcher with his forces, which meant the Goblin King was too far away, and now I can't move the Goblin King in because he'll just drag him in with the bat swarm he had. So I had to go into a sort of war of attrition with my goblins, which didn't end very well. I ended up breaking. I didn't kill very many of his goblins at all. I think I killed maybe like 7 or something, which was pretty bad. The Watcher's shooting wasn't great, but he was still kind of taking down numbers. And the Spider Queen ended up going around the side of the house and kind of threatening the home objective. So I had to pull a few goblins over to deal with that. Not very successfully, even though, again, the Spider Queen wasn't rolling very well. The Goblin King literally didn't touch combat this game, which was a mistake on my part. I should have just sent him around the left to try and deal with the Spider Queen a bit earlier, because he ended up jumping on the treasure in the last turn and taking it, which was a really good play, but frustrating from my point of view because I felt like I definitely could have prevented it if I just focused on getting the TP. I kept nipping over to Aaron's table to see how his game was going, and I have to give thanks to I think it's Elliot Cloud, something like that, with his Khazad-dûm. For actually beating Aaron. That was pretty impressive. I guess if anyone can take thrown weapons, it's probably dwarves. He had a really interesting list actually and went 4-1-1, which was it 4? No, 4-2, which is really, really good. 3-0 because I broke. So pretty anticlimactic, and I didn't get the treasure, but I did get the treasure from 4 of my games, which actually translated to being 1 1/3 worth of a win, which is pretty huge. I got more than anyone else, which meant even though I was 4-2, I ended on 16 tournament points, which is the equivalent of 5 wins and a bit. And Aaron was on 17 tournament points. If I had just got the treasure and 2 VPs, I would have come first. But that means just defending the treasure wouldn't have been enough to win overall. So, it was great. I like I said, got more treasure than anyone else. So I won a lovely prize for that from Liam, which was really nice. Master Burglar. I came second overall. So Aaron's there on 5-1. Then it's me on 4-2, and then it's 5-1, 5-1, 4-1-1, 4-1-1, 4-2, 4-2. So I've I'm surprised more people didn't get them, to be honest. But
I think the problem was you have the spare models to go and get them, like a lot, because a lot of lists just didn't have, like, I guess also because you can bring them on with the scribe and things like that, it just gives you a bit more flexibility maybe. But yeah, there weren't as many like burglar points as I'd expected. I thought it would be like everybody, as you're saying, picking up like a couple.
The scribe did do shit though. I haven't worked it out, but I think on average he brought in maybe like 9 models.
Okay. I was gonna do a I was gonna do an MVP and a least valuable, well, an LVP, although I don't know if that's the thing. So like, I guess for each of us, like, who was your model of the tournament and who was the biggest letdown? I don't really mind what order we do it in. Does anybody have any that spring to mind straight away?
Scribe was shit.
So the scribe let you down.
Yeah, LVP. And MVP just has to be
the fucking Goblin King. I think actually obnoxiously good.
I mean, he is really good. I think Gollum. Gollum because a lot of tournaments he doesn't end up getting the ganks, and in this one he helped kill Legolas, Thror, and Theoden, which were all pretty huge.
Yeah,
and maybe even Grimbold. I can't remember.
Oh, that what a type.
Oh yeah, no, he did help kill Grimbold. Yeah, not that the Goblin King probably needed much help there.
I was gonna say
it just helped guarantee. So he I think I used him a lot better than I usually do.
Okay.
What about you two?
I'd say my biggest disappointment of a model was probably Legolas.
Oh.
Yeah, he just underperformed in pretty much every game.
Oof.
I don't think he didn't win any of the combats I needed him to win in terms of striking. His 2+ hitting never actually scored me any results. It was always, 1 or 2 marks off of the die.
You
don't to even mite it. And it just wasn't quite what he needed to be. I think probably I haven't got very many other options. I think probably my MVP may well have actually been the Wood Elf Sentinel.
I thought it might be.
Yeah, I think that they're a great utility piece in your army. Like, they do give you something.
Yeah, Tariel was good in some of the games. Having that 3 attacks basic and then charging her into 2 models, getting that 4th attack was quite good in some spaces. She was definitely the one that killed the most, I think, across the army. Other than
that D5 is tricky though. Like, that is just a bit sketchy, and I guess it means most of the time, like, basic warriors are a maximum of 5 and often wounding you on 4s. So like,
I think in a normal list, I think Tariel does a lot better because she doesn't actually improve from the Legion. Because she has that Blade Mistress rule already, and I think in a regular list you can also have then the banner and a spear support,
which would really fire her up a bit.
Yeah, you basically got 4 attacks if you charge her into 2 with a reroll and a spear support. You basically got 6 dice instead of 4 to win the fights, which makes her a lot more consistent.
If your list could take a banner, it would become obnoxiously good. Like, I think that's genuinely all it needs is like just some kind of banner effect, and it would be. I don't think it should get one, by the way. I think like it's fine as is.
I think it is as fine as well. Yeah.
Like, if there was any list that like a banner would just make completely ridiculous, it's definitely your list. Okay, cool. I'm trying to think.
The Night Fire does make it really nice.
Yeah. I'm trying to think who did. Guaihere's the MVP because he's unbelievably good, and I just won't hear otherwise. Like, it's incredible. Like, fight 8, strength 7, D8. It's just, and you're so maneuverable. Like, I so often just end up like parking him in the middle of the board. I'm like, what are you gonna do? Like, where are you gonna go? Like he will just chase you down. In terms of the least, I think Bilbo, like, I misplayed him, so like obviously it's a bit biased, but like also I think the problem is with this list is I need all the models to be able to like kind of stand up on their own. And Bilbo's great at like comboing with other models, but there are a lot of occasions he just got kind of isolated, and then he is one attack fight 3 D3, and it does just mean against, obviously he's got the ring, but like even against a basic warrior he's not actually that favoured, and it does just mean he's a bit vulnerable. So I think I was actually thinking on the train home, I think the list would have been significantly better if I'd traded out Bilbo and Norrie, or Dorry, or whichever fucking one I put in, for Gloin and Biffa, or Bofa, or whichever one it is that gives the free heroic moves. Because like I think Gloin would actually stand up by himself a lot better than either Bilbo or Norrie, and like getting free heroic moves would be really nice with this list. So I think
agree.
next time I bring it to a GBHL, which will probably be in about 2 years or something. Although the problem is Gloin is the only member of Thorin's company I don't have on Pony, so I had to sacrifice him to make a Thorin conversion on Goat. So I'm not actually going to buy a third copy of Thorin's company to just put Gloin on a pony, but I will need to think of another way of getting him on pony.
You use a Gimli, maybe.
Yeah, it's true. I do have a few spare Gimli sculpts from Fellowship boxes I've bought down the years, so maybe that's it. Anyway, right. So we'll just quickly run through how we compare to our predictions. So basically, for me, I think like the average prediction was kind of 2 and 4. Ended up going 3 and 3. Pretty happy with that. Like I think in my heart of hearts, I really wanted to go like 4 and 2. I kind of wanted to go positive, and I think I probably could have done. But I'm not mad at finishing 3 and 3. Like it's a pretty solid result, and I was definitely like, it was better, I think, to end on a high, because I think if I'd done what Chef had done of like smashing it the first day and then falling off a bit on the second day, I think I've ended up feeling a bit sad. So yeah, it was nice. Looking at Mayor's
you were 1 win away from being where I was.
It's true. I think the problem is, like, I think actually what I said before, like, about this list is true. Like, basically, in order to do really, really well, you just need to roll quite hot, and it's harder to do that over the course of a 6-game tournament than it is a 3-game. Because basically, if you split this into 2 3-game tournaments, I'd have come like pretty much dead. I think I was second from bottom after day 1. And I think I might have been the only player to win 3 games on day 2, but I will need to fact check that before putting it into the video. So yeah, very much a game of 2 halves. We'll come to Mayor next because he's the next one in the list.
I'm having trouble reading this table. So what's top and left? Which is which?
So if you read across horizontally, that's what we predicted you would get. And then if you read down vertically, that's what you predicted people would get. So your predictions were not applicable. 4 and 2, 5 and 1, 5 and 1.
Yes, I thought I'd go 4 and 2. Sebastian and Chef thought I'd go 5 and 1, which was very close.
You did technically go 5 and 1 after the
I suppose,
treasure points. You actually went 5 and a third and 1.
Yeah, it's true. I think I just I always felt like there was going to be one random one that I just lost, which I lost 2, and then I was thinking I'd probably lose the Killy one, which I ended up winning. So 4 and 2 feels like, I'm just so used to playing Goblin Town now. I feel pretty confident getting 4 and 2 in like a standard tournament format. The 2 opponents just played really well and had like perhaps slightly favourable scenarios for their army, but I can't really complain about that when I'm playing Goblin Town. So Do
you think you'll carry on doing Goblin Town, or do you think there's another list on the horizon, or what do you think the future might bring?
I think I'm gonna start playing something else. I need to finish painting up and playing my all-mounted Rohan. I've also got Iron Hills that are waiting to be painted. So
they've been waiting for like 4 years at this point. How long have you had them?
Not as long as some other armies I have, but I think because before I've been a bit, I don't really want to. Well, I want to keep my Longshanks score going if I'm trying to be competitive. And so what I'm going to do is create another account, and that'll be my sort of fun account. So if I just want to go to a tournament and have fun and not worry about my rankings or anything, then play on casual mode. I'll use that account and I'll play something a bit more fun. I've got Thrones Company, I've got Fellowship, I've got lots of fun lists that I could use, that I'd like to use, and maybe become a bit more mid-table. We'll see.
Does that constitute as fraud?
Maybe.
Get arrested by the Longshanks police. So Sebastian, basically, I think yours was actually the most mixed predictions. So Chef said 4-2, you said 2-4, Mayor said 3-3, and I said 3-1-2, which I'd like to point out was correct. Like I don't think I believed it would be correct at the time, but I did. I clearly had some information that no one else did. How do you feel it performed overall?
Yeah, I think perhaps me saying 2-4 was a little bit pessimistic, but I think if I had seen the scenarios, I would have still predicted 2-4.
Yeah.
I think that there were a couple of favourable matchups in terms of things like Fog of War with our game. I think was favourable for me.
Yeah, I think there would have been some other scenarios that would have been very tricky for you to manage, but I think Fog of War was a nice one.
And I think things like if I'd seen Contest of Champions, Reconnoiter, Retrieval, like Domination, I was just like, no, I'm gonna lose all 4 of those. I might win the other 2. So I'm quite happy with the prediction that you gave, and ended up being correct. So I was pleased with the performance, although I didn't actually massively enjoy playing the list.
That was going to be my next question. I did wonder if there would be some doubts.
Yeah, I think unfortunately the way that the list plays doesn't really favor you when you're trying to win the tournament. Like, not that I was expecting it to win a tournament or anything. I just think a lot of the scenarios don't particularly gel with the way that the list is designed.
What I experienced in our game, and I don't know if this rung true in the rest of your games, is that you give up so much board control with the way your list plays. Like, you can't, maybe against me it was a bit warped, but like you do just have to sit back a bit more, and like you do often naturally find yourself, like in a wood near the back of the board or something, because
it was very much that the entire tournament was, is there a forest on the table? Cool, I have to go there. Otherwise I'm gonna get absolutely trounced by all of these models, and being outnumbered pretty much every game, except obviously ours and against a chariot list. It certainly was a difficult list to play. I can see how it could control certain areas of the board by being able to even shoot, and sort of creating those lanes, or skirmishing around if it's a particular killing scenario. But I think just being defense 3 and
it's
reliant on those those good dice rolling, such a glass cannon. It was definitely an interesting list. I don't think I'm going to bring it to too many more tournaments, but I am working on a full Thranduil's Halls type of list, which has a lot more warriors with D6 and getting Thranduil on the list, because I think it really misses Thranduil.
Much theory. Cool. Right. Well, thank you for listening. A good tournament. Leon smashed it again, but he always does. So love it.
Yeah, thank you, Leon. Very well done.
Yeah, and another thing to say, like, just real good vibes from everyone there. Like, I can only speak for my games, but I had 6 really nice games, and nobody was a dick about anything, and people were really good at just like using common sense about stuff like that, and that was really cool. So good job, Worcester. Not the place, but the people. I've been joined by Sebastian.
Thank you for having me.
Mayor is here.
Thanks everyone. Have a great weekend, and goodbye.
And I've been OT. Drop us a like, drop us a subscribe. We're nearing 1,000 subscribers, which means we have to sort out what the fuck we're actually going to do, because we did say we'd do something. But yeah, cool. Right, see you for the next one. Bye.
Cheers, guys.